All right, a very good morning to everyone. It's a second day. I'm sure a lot of you would be there on day one, and you had great networking time, great sessions, and quite captivating sessions at different halls we had. Uh, Today's track, earlier named as advertising, but now named as ad tech, we realize that technology is an integral part of advertising whenever we're talking, especially at IAMAI, with the various conversations happening. Uh, Before we kickstart the first session, I would like to quickly give shout out to our partners without whom could not be here and conduct such great event. Like to thank our associate partners Google and MessageBird, growth partner Paytm Ads, lanyard partner Kalera, conversation media partner Bobble AI, agenda partner Disney Star, track partner TCI, digital transformation partner Accenture India, digital media partner Jagran New Media, silver partner CleverTap and AWS, bronze partner Hexa Webini, Mool.one, Exotel, Notify Visitor, PaySprint and True Balance, and conversation partner Value First. Now, kickstarting our very, very powerful track with our first session, and that is the role of fintech in shaping digital marketing 2023. To to moderate this session, we have Mr. Kapoor, Senior Vice President, Head of Business, Paytm Ads. Can we have a round of applause to welcome him on the stage? I would also like to introduce to our panelist, Ms. Anuja Mishra, Chief Marketing Officer, Mamaearth. Welcome, Anuja. Can we have some energy in the room? Okay. Ms. Archana Aggarwal, Vice President, Media, Airtel. Welcome, Archana. Mr. Sameer Jain, VP and Head D2C Commerce, Max Life Insurance. Welcome, Sameer. Over to you, Sameer.
Okay, and where is the timer?
We will have time.
Oh. Hey, good morning. Hey, good morning. First of all, a big thanks to our panelists for making time for this session. Before we start off, just want to set the context in terms of what are the areas we would be discussing. So this is a question to each of the panelists. And what we are seeing today is something unprecedented in a country like India, where digital marketing is now properly mainstream. If you look at any of the reports that talk about the outlook on marketing spends, digital marketing is almost, if not ahead of mainstream media like television in a country like India, which is a big deal. So my question to each one of you is that how are you as marketers of today looking at leveraging the scale that digital marketing offers in your scheme of things? Maybe we can start with you, Anuja.
So I think just speaking about us, we have been a digital-first organization. Started out with Mamaearth, and then of course we've got now a whole host of house of brands. So obviously that's what our genesis has been, and that's what our core has been. Even as we go omni-channel, the reality really here, Sameer, is that the consumer is consuming content everywhere. And I think it's very difficult to bifurcate a consumer. You can always bifurcate the consumer, saying that consumer buys offline, but I think content consumption is everywhere. So I think digital marketing for us, whether by way of video or influencer marketing or performance marketing, of course, is pretty much mainstay and will continue to be.
Okay, Archana.
So, a few years ago, in one of the Google for India, at that point of time, I remember our digital marketing spends were around in the range of around 40%. And a lot of people were shocked and told us, I think you're overspending. But I think while one of the things we did very early on was continue to experiment, because this is such a vast medium that we wanted to keep learning and experimenting. So obviously from that few years ago, 40%, it's much, much higher than that now. And I'm talking about a mix of both branding and performance plus advocacy spends. And I think from an Airtel standpoint, I think we don't stick to just a top three platforms. We actually keep experimenting with a lot of new platforms, be it from an influencer standpoint or even in terms of the open web, or we've also done some fintech advertising, and we keep experimenting because for different campaigns or different products of us, different kind of platforms work. And that's our mode of constant experimentation and constant learning. So for us, it didn't matter whether AdX has become, digital AdX is really high now. It's something which it's a journey and it's going to continue.
So you were already ahead of the curve.
I hope so.
Yeah, for us also, we've always been over-indexed on digital marketing. I think the whole of BFSI is. But an important change that I've seen in the time that I spent with the organization, digital marketing used to be part of the overall marketing function. The CMO had the mandate of brand as well as digital. But over the years, what has really changed is we are now part of business and we report to sales. And I've seen this shift happening with a lot of organizations. I've seen this with Make My Trip. I've seen this with Tata Click, with Domino's, with a lot of organizations where digital now reports to business. And we have a dual mandate of driving business as well as brand consideration. I think increasingly brands are realizing that digital is not just about performance, and because you're spending so much money, you are garnering so many impressions, the reach is incredible. You drive both brand as well as performance outcomes. For us, almost 80% of our media is on digital and only 20% is on brand. It's not a great state to be in. Actually, we constantly try and make the case for brand stronger in our organization, but that's where we are.
So good. So what we are hearing is that we have 3 different sectors, and all brands here are leader brands in the category. What we basically see that digital marketing is mainstream. So my next question to you is that when we look at digital marketing today and the options that are available, it's primarily 3 big genres of, one is obviously video. In a country like India, video is either entertainment or sports. Then from an overall digital landscape, you talk about interest and intent as 2 themes that are there. Most of which will probably lead into a scenario where you're talking about more probabilistic data and targeting. And how do you straddle that in the current scheme of things? And then obviously we'll talk about fintech, which is a new theme which is emerging, where you talk about real signals, you talk about real deterministic audiences. So how are you straddling with the current, and how are you looking at just trying to change and incorporate the new streams that are emerging? You could also talk about e-commerce, because e-commerce is also some bit of deterministic data that is there. Archana, Anuja, whoever wants to start with.
So we use it in a manner that we use the probabilistic data to drive the upper funnel metrics largely, because one of the key tasks is to drive brand awareness and consideration, right, first, and that's very critical. And so it's a mix of probabilistic and deterministic data. But the key task that we use deterministic data largely is when we are looking at in-market, or we are looking at some specific cohorts, right, who we want to target. So it could be somebody who's searching. Let me give you an example for international roaming pack, right? Somebody who is searching for visa or forex, or looking at international flight tickets, then that's in-market audiences. Or for one of our brands like Payments Bank, like we're looking at, or when we did a campaign called Safe Pay, that Airtel gives you an additional layer of safety with your Payments Bank. Who did we want? We wanted people who are already transacting digitally, right? That's where deterministic data helped, because even if they have even done one digital transaction, and when I say digital transaction, obviously a money payment, so it could be a recharge of their phone or their DTH or any such, that becomes deterministic, and that was like the key audience or key cohort. No, but that audience is something to drive for me, for my Airtel standpoint, to drive the middle funnel. I will use probabilistic data to drive the awareness, and I'll use a lot of the deterministic to be much more in-market, interest-based, content-based, and use it in that manner, more for trigger moments, like, that this is when they're going to start, getting into the purchase consideration set. That's how we use it.
Anuja, you have similar thoughts? Because see, you are a D2C brand, and probably for you, there's a largest play in the digital marketing
Yeah.
space. So how do you straddle the two?
So I think, Sameer, firstly, we'll have to understand that, the lines between probabilistic platforms and deterministic is really blurring.
Okay.
I think every marketer is today questioning, the probabilistic platforms to say, hey, how do I get closer to the consumer's, funnel and the entire journey towards closure? So there is, in my mind, especially, when you're a brand, and I think we're all representing large brands today, it's very important to be building the brand imagery and the equity. Ensuring that you're reaching out to the last, to the consumer, to the last mile, but also I think at the same time, driving them closer to consideration. So I wouldn't therefore, necessarily say that, we would sort of bifurcate our digital spends from a probabilistic or deterministic lens only, but I think more from a lens of, hey, let's say if I've got a new product, right, and I've got a demand function that says that I've got to reach out to an X million sort of consumers to make them aware of the product. I'll ideally first look at, which platform gives me the, the ability to reach out to them, make them aware, and possibly help them drive, consideration and eventually conversion, actually. It's only in the absence of, your ability to reach that out through a deterministic platform, do you then say that, you would possibly then augment, that audience to a larger base. And I think so, like I said, the lines are blurring, but I think for consumer brands especially, where, the platforms are also sort of critical to be evaluated is from the lens of content, from the lens of both interest and, intent, and I think closeness or relevance to the category eventually.
So, Sameer, your business is based on basically looking at audiences which are like, who would be qualified audiences for taking your products and services. So probably your need for a highly identified and qualified audience would be much more than any other brand here. So how do you go about that?
You spoke about interest and intent, right? So interestingly, we are not an intent-led category. The number of people actually searching for insurance, term insurance, or savings-led insurance products is very less. And hence, majority of our spends is to build the top of the funnel, is to identify the key interests and the right audiences. Over a period of time, we figured out that international travelers have a natural affinity for insurance. People who indulge in self-care have a natural affinity for insurance. So that has obviously helped us get sharper. But we can't sell insurance to everyone, right? So you have to be a graduate, you have to be between a certain age, you have to have an ITR declared income of 5 lakh and above. And hence there is a need to sharpshoot. Otherwise, we've experienced 60 to 70% of the funnel that we create is waste funnel, which is wasted marketing dollars. Even for spending that money on creating brand awareness or consideration on that segment doesn't really yield much for us. And hence, getting deterministic signals is key for us. There are very few platforms which do offer this capability. It's actually a three-way street for us. We need the right audiences, we need the right signals, and we need the right ML models to be able to optimize for the business goals that you have identified for yourself. And it's a problem which we are continuously trying to solve for. Fintech does provide a lot of deterministic signals because of the wealth of transaction data that most fintech platforms today are sitting on, and that's something we are looking to leverage.
So just picking up to the points that three of you raised. So there are two elements to this. If you look at the brand part of it and performance, I disagree that they should be separate. But because after all, you're going after the same consumer. But from a branding lens, in the digital landscape, there is the issue around ad fraud, brand safety, those kind of elements. In the case of performance, which Sameer talked about, there is also a challenge of the right attribution as well as also determining the long-term value of a consumer that you would have acquired. How prominent is this in your scheme of things to address, A, for your brand, and B, for basically the ecosystem? Is there a guidance that you want to share that this is a real problem for us, and probably this is something that needs to be addressed, because as the ecosystem is going larger, these issues will also start coming into play And as Samir mentioned, there will be efficiency loss. Archana, you want to give it a shot?
See the way we've actually been already investing in brand safety tools since last 1.5, 2 years, right? So we went ahead and did a whole landscape assessment to identify one platform that we wanted to tie up with a long-term basis. So that is something which we are already doing. And it's not just brand safety, it's also viewability and ad fraud. And we've identified platforms where there are either all three challenges or some of those challenges are available. And then we've gone back and had conversations, and obviously that has helped reduce all these issues for us. So there is something which you are already investing in. So for me right now, that is not much of a challenge. But coming to your point on lifetime value, I think, especially from a performance standpoint, we definitely look at both the cost per acquisition of offline and online sales, because at the end of it, there is budgets going into both in terms of driving sales. And at the end of it, if you have to be more efficient and which gives better ROI, not only from a cost per acquisition standpoint, but also you do look at other parameters like lifetime value and because we are a service or a mobility business and we have lots of, like a DTH and broadband, we also look at other things, other parameters of saying that yes, there could be a lifetime value, or is it the fact that this person is staying with us, what's the decay rate in terms of how often, how fast do they leave our ecosystem and go away. So I think there are a lot of parameters, and each brand has their own set of parameters that they define, and lifetime value would, in my mind, is one of those parameters that can't be the only parameter.
Fair enough. Anuja, you have any thoughts on this? Because for you, you are looking at a large part of your strategy is also about introducing a new brand, getting users to try, acquire them, and then obviously keep them with you.
Sure.
So how do you look at that parameter?
So I think I'll just kind of address the point on brand safety first. Like Archana said, I think every brand, puts in disproportionate, and every business puts in disproportionate amount of effort, time, and resources to ensure that, issues of brand safety, frauds, etc., are sort of minimized. Having said that, I think every incremental platform that you look to engage with, there would always be learnings around the same that you've kind of, got to keep yourself open to. And I think especially, see, when consumers transact on marketplaces, there is that degree of trust. But when you're bringing them to your platforms, you've got to ensure that, the loop is completely closed from a safety lens. So I think that is something that we're consciously sort of, and cautiously looking at all the time. I think the point on LTV, absolutely very critical, I think, especially for every D2C brand, while the start of the journey is towards acquisition, the next question always is, and I think cost of acquisitions, we all know, is not necessarily a cost that too many people have been able to bring down over the journey of the brands, right? So then the real meat lies in the LTV, and the LTV is, for us, one is, of course, how do you, let's say, on brand Mamaearth itself, how do you sort of build a cross-sell strategy and upsell strategy over a period of time, continue to engage with the consumer. But more importantly, because we've got a house of brands, right? How do I also, let's say, look at engaging with my Mamaearth consumers through brands like Be Blunt, the Derma Company, or Aqualogica, which are new age brands, where I kind of realize from my first party data or other signals in market to say that, hey, X set of consumers are possibly better served through another product proposition. So therefore, every platform that you evaluate is also not just from an acquisition lens, but from a lens of, is there a longevity to engagement with the consumer?
Do you think that from an engagement point of view, and all of you are stressing on the engagement bit, and India being a deal-seeking country, do you think couponing and promotion or deals, sampling, those kind of elements become critical for a brand like you in a D2C space?
I'd say, Sameer, again, sort of difficult to answer this simplistically, but I'd say that, couponing, sampling, deals, or I think larger propositions, everything has a role to play in the life of the brand and in the, sort of journey with the consumer. You, of course, I think consumers initially are sort of, looking out for deals, or maybe they're looking out for nothing, right? And you kind of put out various things to understand, what about you sort of pleases them. And I think over a period of time, it's very important that you start to, connect with them as a brand, and your values connect with them beyond the deals that you're kind of, sort of putting out there. And therefore, I'd say that everything has a role. Important to know when to kind of start, stop, or continue.
Well, so this is for you, Sameer. So we talk about digital payments as the new currency for the country, and when you look at the penetration of digital currency, it's like right down to what we call typically Bharat, which is basically tier 2, tier 3 towns. Do you think a category like yours could leverage a little more on this penetration and this knowledge about this user, given the fact that insurance per se has less penetration in the country than would be an ideal coverage for a country like us?
Yeah, you're right in pointing that out. Most insurance companies in India focus on the top 50 cities or maybe the top 100 cities, just to ensure that they don't spray and pray, right? They're sharp with their investments, time, energy. However, is it true that that RTG only lives in these cities? Of course not. We've seen that the long tail continues to grow faster than the top 50, 100 cities, even if we talk about affluent, aware audiences. And hence there is a need to, again, re-emphasizing the point on deterministic signals, there is a need to go outside of these top 100 cities to the larger Bharat. But we need to be able to be sharp when we do that, because otherwise you could just burn marketing money in a jiffy and you'll not even realize it. So that's the challenge.
Archana, we've been talking backstage about specific examples how you have seen value of the fintech data coming in scheme of things, and coming from you because you are already a huge mass brand in a country like India. So what is the value you see in your overall scheme of things? How do you see the value coming in for specific SKUs or businesses that you have?
So I think the value we've seen is the fact that it's deterministic data, one. I can get a lot of intent in market kind of cohorts, which is and I gave that example of the digitally transacting audience, for example, right? For that campaign, that was one of our key cohorts that we wanted to target, because if you're not digitally transacting, then this product was not relevant for you, right? So that is something which had helped actually drive, and it did pretty well for us in terms of the CTRs and everything. And I'm talking from a brand awareness standpoint, right? So it drove media metrics for us, right? But at the same time, we've also seen the business grow at the middle and the lower funnel in terms of with the fintech brands, where we've seen this whole piece of, when we've done this couponing, like that, those scratch cards, right? When you make a payment and you put that scratch card out, that has actually worked very well, because in that scratch card you can do a fair amount of, and people do scratch those cards, right, to see what have they won, what have they got, right? So I think that has really worked very well. But at the same time, I would like to mention the fact that there are some challenges still with the fintech pieces, right? One, if I look at it from a brand standpoint, there is limited video inventory, first. And Airtel as a brand spends a lot more on video than it does on display. So I think that is a big challenge. Second challenge is, a lot of these fintech apps, people come for a certain transaction, right? They come, I want to make this payment, I do the payment and I get out. So the attention span on these apps is also limited, right? I don't get it. It's not like I'm surfing through and going through what else is, unless I'm coming to just generally see what else is available, which is very rare, right? So most of the times it's just about, I'm coming here for a transaction and I've done that and I'm out. So how do you, given that the attention span is low, the advertising that you do could potentially become a blind spot. So that, for me, from a branding standpoint, is a challenge. The second issue is that a lot of the brand safety, the BAV tools are not integrated with these fintech apps, right? It's still work in progress. So that you talk about, yes, they are brand safe environments, but the fact is there could be a lot of fraud, there could be a lot of viewability issues and various things like this. And hence, having these integrations with brand safety tools becomes critical. The third thing is, if I look at it from a performance angle, as I mentioned, the scratch card piece works really well, the coupons that we put in. But I'm not, I think we've seen some challenges in the algo where it's still not ready for a cost, to manage or to optimize on a cost per acquisition basis. I think that still remains a challenge. And which is why we've seen fair amount of success on the scratch card part, but not on the regular advertising piece, even from a performance lens standpoint. So I think there are some of these challenges which continue to exist, and so every platform has some challenges, so does this. It's about finding a way on figuring out what works best for the brand.
No, fair enough. I think these are important points, and I'll come to you, Anuja, as well. But just want to address the fact that the CAG optimization actually is a two-way process. So the client should also be willing to push back some data for the platform to optimize. But yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to mention. Also, fintech apps are semi-walled gardens in a way, because there's no data sharing, and which happens. It's, as you said, it's a two-way process.
Yes, absolutely. Probably it's a more secret data, given the fact that it's financial data. So obviously there will be some. But I hear your views on how does fintech become more relevant from a branding piece. And I'm understanding branding here is video, because I think video is a larger money. Anuja, your thoughts on what can fintech do, and your experience so far on how it has helped your marketing plans.
So I think, again, going back to an experience very similar to that of what Archana mentioned, I think the whole couponing exercise, has brought in fairly strong CTRs for us. We've not actually very actively yet tried top of the funnel on fintech, but I think, again, going back to the strength of the platform, right? I think the platform does bring in more digitally savvy consumers, but I think the barrier possibly today, and I was just trying to reflect, when was the last time I went on to Paytm, not with the intent of making a transaction, but generally to sort of, stroll around on the platform, right? I don't think most consumers do that, and therefore it's important to ensure that if you're putting in video inventory, is it going at a place where your view-throughs, your viewability is ensured? So possibly end of the transaction, could evaluate that. But I think definitely there are strengths of the platform. The way I would look at it, Sameer, is that, we're all graduating from interest-based targeting to more intent-based, kind of targeting as much as possible. And I think in the scheme of things, how does fintech prove to be, let's say, a better platform than arguably a DSP today, right? Where I could close the loop with the consumer, preferably, of course, at the same time, building the brand through more video content and engagement.
Fair enough.
Just wanted to add something, not really talking about advertising and acquisition, but I think the point that Anuja mentioned and even Archana touched upon is that engagement is a key factor. If as a brand, if you're sitting on a pile of customers, you need to be able to figure out a way to continuously engage them. And ours is a very typical category where you buy a life insurance product for 50 years, right? And the only engagement a brand has with the customers typically is when their renewal premium is due. So we have to figure out, what we can offer to the customer on a regular basis. Maybe, it's some calculators where they could check their income tax or credit scores, or they come and play some games, or, help them build their portfolio on your platform. But offer something more to them for, them to consider you not just for getting their transactions done, but for something in addition on a daily basis. How can you be top of mind on a daily basis?
Do you think, and Anuja, you were mentioning this when we were discussing backstage, do you think fintech as a solution, as a platform, needs to come more in the front, in the sense of educating the marketers and
absolutely. And I'm just going to be really candid, but I think when we sort of discussed that this kind of theme is coming up, I think the first thing that came to my mind is that there are so many, and for the right reasons, right? I think the way fintechs evolved, there are so many myths possibly that a lot of marketers harbor in our mind, right? And I think the three of us here we all have possibly different understanding of fintech platforms as a way to engage with our consumers. Now, of course, I think each of our consumers could sort of vary, in terms of how you would engage with them. But possibly there is a huge ask, Sameer, in terms of first, building, I think, a very clear role of what a fintech can do for the brand in its journey. And I think two, engaging more with the marketing fraternity to say, like I said, building use cases, right, for fintech as a platform.
See, fintech's going to grow only. It's just going to go upwards, right? Today, few years ago when we talked about e-commerce, it was a small nascent category. Today, it's nearly 16% of ADEX. Fintech is again a very small percentage. It's nascent in that sense, but it's, as I said, it in. So fully echo what Anuja said in terms of saying that you have to educate, because I'm saying there are these myths. I mean, it could be myths or it's facts. We don't know, but the fact is that, yeah, like I have an issue saying that, what about attention spans, right? Now, if I truly believe that, and I believe that their attention span is low, it's not that we haven't advertised. We've seen good results, but the budgets that we'll put on the platform will be very limited, because I know, it works only for this XYZ cohort and it will not. And hence that education is important in terms of what else, these case studies in terms of what has it delivered for brands, right? I think that becomes very, very critical. In fact, I know, I think sometime back I did see one article, like that one case study which you all had done with Pepsi, which is on your Paytm audience network, right? Now, when you put those out, I think the first thing I went when I read that case study was, I spoke to my team and agency and saying, can we understand what this is? Because when you're seeing a case study which works, or it is something interesting which you haven't heard of, then as marketers, we are very intrigued in terms of trying to understand what is this new things. Because we are also looking at opportunities to invest budgets into and to sing the right way.
FOMO kicks in.
It's not so much the FOMO, it's about also trying to experiment, because this, as I said, this landscape is so vast, there's something new coming up every day. And you need to keep learning, which is why it's a journey. It's not like today I've learned everything and I'm the expert. I'm not. I'm still learning, because there is no end to this learning, right? It's just because tomorrow some new thing will come up. When it'll become cookie-less world, again we will be back to relearning everything. So that's the reason it's a journey, and it's just important to keep, and hence why marketers need to be educated constantly in terms of saying, okay, this is which you can do. Because marketers have only that much bandwidth, right, in terms of what we can do. Exactly, that much budget and that much bandwidth. Now, I can go to saying that let me do what is safe, secure, I know this works. And there's only this much money for experimentation. Now there are 100 experiments that I can do, which is the one which I will put my money on. And that's the reason it's that important to get that mind space of the marketer.
So fair enough, I think valid feedback. The question from us to marketers is, are they willing to let go of their safe, secure, trusted
I think
way of working?
more than ever before.
Yes.
I generally feel that the marketing community is willing to experiment, but I think it's important that you kind of show us the way on experimentation to scale.
Yes.
And not kind of just leave an experiment as a great experiment, but hey, eventually how do I take it forward?
I've been privy to boardroom discussions, and I keep talking to my peers also. I think it's an increasing discourse between how do you de-risk yourselves from Google and Meta? How do you create that third leg for your business? Because increasingly everybody is realizing that your growth appetite is not satiated by only two platforms, and spreading yourself too thin also doesn't really work. Often in terms, whenever we are seeking growth, we tie up with small partners, and it's only time we realize that we are working with 15 different partners. It's a lot of waste of energy, time, bandwidth. So there's this opportunity, I think, that fintech should grab in the upcoming times and become that third leg of advertising in India.
Can I just add one more thing?
Of course.
I think the other every platform has their own, in terms of creative, what works, right? Every platform, different types of creators work. What works today in a Facebook may not work on Instagram, example, right? Same way on fintech, I think it's also important for the fintech brands to educate marketers in terms of what kind of creatives will work, what's the right way of doing things, because I don't think that there's enough work which has been done on that.
So I think our time is up. So what essentially we are saying is that there is headroom for growth for fintech in the digital marketing scheme. Obviously, we learn on the go. There is a lot of work that the players need to do for the ecosystem. There is obviously support needed from the marketing fraternity, and probably this could be the next mainstream digital channel in times to come. Yeah. So good. Thanks.